Hi, my name is Dan Alloway, Vice President of Development with Systems for PT. In this video, we'll look ahead to MIPS, what we know as of September 20th. We categorize MIPS as the most significant reimbursement change in our careers. I've been in outpatient rehab for 16 years, many of you 25, 35 years. Even for you, MIPS is the most significant reimbursement change in your entire career. At the 10,000-foot level, MIPS is designed to improve quality. But let's parse those words. MIPS will force practices to deliver quality and will weed out those who don't. We've all seen the MIPS take-back and bonus calendar where the take-backs and bonuses increase through the years. This is a greatly misunderstood concept. As with PQRS, the MIPS take-back or bonus is applied 2 years after the reporting year. So next year, outpatient rehab is invited to participate in MIPS 2019. The take-back or bonus will be applied in 2021, and that'll be 7%. So important to understand, in 3 months, if you're not compliant with MIPS, your practice will begin incurring a liability. 7% take-back in 2021, 9% take-back in 2022. Sobering. You've heard the term that MIPS is budget neutral. The take-back money from non-compliant practices will be distributed to compliant practices as a bonus. Examples. The size of the bonus pool is dependent upon how many take-back dollars are available. If 10,000 practices suffered the 7% take-back, they averaged $100,000 apiece Medicare payments, there would be a $70 million pool to fund the bonuses. So if another 10,000 practices complied with MIPS, and if they averaged $100,000, they would enjoy a 7% bonus. But if 20,000 practices complied with MIPS, they averaged $100,000, there'd be a 3.5% bonus for the winners. That's all the take-back pool could fund. Or if 20,000 practices complied and they were larger, an average of $200,000 a year Medicare reimbursements. Each practice would receive a 1.75% bonus. That's all the take-back pool could fund. So the take-back is clear, it's fixed, the bonus is less clear. Now, January 2019, Medicare will no longer increase our fee schedules every year, the annual increase in CPT payments. The only way to adjust Medicare payments for cost of living is to qualify for the MIPS bonus. Let's step back. There's no doubt. Salaries will increase, rent will increase, energy, taxes, everything's going to go up. Translation, your practice will qualify for the MIPS bonus, or it's going to be very difficult to survive. 2020 MIPS performance for PT and OT is a 9% take-back, applied in 2022, and it's expected to include major commercial payers. So what that means is our 2020 performance, there'll be a 9% take-back on what is 65% of your reimbursements. As a practice owner, you may say, there's only so much that I can do personally. I have 5 therapists, I'm only 20% of production, or I have 5 or 10 locations. Success with MIPS will require strong management. Through the years, we've all met therapists who revolt against payer rules. Therapists whose heart and mind are in the right place with the patient. I'll do things my way, the right way. MIPS is different. MIPS is going to punish that mindset. PQRS was a 2% penalty. MIPS, up to 9% on 65% of revenue. The easiest way to apply the necessary management and leadership with your therapist is to make this topic personal. Like PQRS, the MIPS take-back is applied to the individual NPI level. And so let the therapist know, 9% take-back, 65% of revenue, that's about $15,000 take-back. Am I going to be coming to you asking to lower your salary by $15,000 a year? Am I going to have to fire you and hire a compliant therapist because our practice doesn't deserve to be paid $15,000 less? Make it a personal topic. Everybody has to pay attention. You've heard that MIPS is a composite program made up of quality, cost, improvement activities, and interoperability. Each component has a score. The scores add up to 100 possible points at the end of the year. We'll talk about each of these categories. Quality is patient progression, outcomes, and PQRS. Now, this is where we want to pay attention. Nearly half of outpatient rehab practices can't measure progression. They don't know how their outcomes compare to average outcomes. Question: how do you survive paying for progression if you can't measure progression? The answer is you probably don't. Cost. Cost is based on Medicare payments to the practice. And again, this is difficult. Nearly half of outpatient rehab practices can't compare their costs versus others, or specifically, they don't know how many visits per diagnosis per episode they charge Medicare for compared to the average. You don't want to fly blind into MIPS. Improvement activities, outcome tools, patient engagement. You've heard the term patient relationship module, patient retention module, patient satisfaction surveys. So there will be a lot more communication with the patient. Beware of being the hostage. MIPS encourages patient relationship and communication. Some EMRs are actually trying to swindle you into paying extra for it. Not fair. With Systems 4PT, it's no extra charge. And interoperability. Interoperability is the ability for your EMR to communicate with doctors' EMRs or payers' computers. It's not just the ability to send a file. Get this, it's the ability to send any piece of documentation for any date, which means that every note, every field has to be a separate, accessible, transferable database field. Sophisticated technology. Numerous EMRs in outpatient rehab are not going to be able to comply with interoperability. They won't have the technology, they won't have the funding, the balance sheet to make it happen. Systems 4PT will provide our interoperability at no charge. So at the high level, it's clear if you document on paper, there is no way to comply with MIPS. And if you use EMR, if your EMR is not discussing these topics with you right now, you should change EMR right now. These are not easy changes. These are 6, 8, 10-month lead time projects. MIPS does have minimum reporting requirements. If it's the first year you're submitting information to Medicare, you're not required to submit MIPS. Or there's a minimum threshold. If your practice is reimbursed less than $90,000 a year, or if you have fewer than 200 Medicare Part B patients treated per year from your practice, you're exempt. Again, there's confusion about this topic. Being below the low volume threshold is not a reason to celebrate. If your practice is not interoperable, the industry will quickly leave you behind. Think about it. The surgeons, the doctors, they're going to want to push a button and see the data with interoperability. They're not going to be excited about waiting for the fax to show up on the fax machine. You want to be ahead of this. Systems 4PT has the most robust MIPS library in the industry, where we clarify and simplify a complex, evolving topic. Why does MIPS matter? Paper practices will not survive. A significant number of EMRs will not offer interoperability. Their practices will suffer. 40% of practices have no way to measure patient outcomes or cost. No way to win. And in 2020, there will be a 9% take-back, impacting 65% of the practice's average revenue. Today, your practice is not compliant with MIPS requirements. Now, here's the key point. It's vital that we all recognize the essence of healthcare reform is to increase, to adopt, to embrace technology. Vital that we all see that MIPS is pushing your practice toward technology. The only way to achieve the necessary compliance is to use sophisticated computers that guide your therapists to comply with MIPS, and leaving them with more time to treat the patient. MIPS compliance requires more technology than your EMR offers. So we've outlined how MIPS work, and by doing so, we've defined the problem. Your practice isn't ready. Your EMR isn't ready for MIPS. Let's look at some examples, and let's talk about some solutions. PQRS, a component of MIPS, a 3 to 5 minute workflow. In 2016, 40% of therapists did not comply with PQRS. Does that mean with MIPS, we're going to increase our workflow for evals and reevals by 3 to 5 minutes each? Does that mean 40% of practices won't comply with MIPS? System Support PT, our 2016 PQRS results, it was a 10-second therapist workflow, and 99.3% of System Support PT therapists were compliant. If you want to know which EMR will deliver the highest compliance with MIPS, just find the EMR that's delivered the highest compliance with the components of MIPS. Have you seen this? The APTA recently published a study of G-code quality, an impressive, amazing analysis that reviewed a random 5% sample of Medicare submissions. The findings: 17% of Medicare patients received the proper G-codes on their 10th visit, meaning that 83% of Medicare patients were not compliant. With System Support PT, 100% of our Medicare 10th visits had G-codes since January 2013. The best way to maximize your success with MIPS is to partner with an EMR who's already maximized success for their practices. Seriously, if your EMR can't perfect G-codes, they don't have a prayer with MIPS. Next example, while the industry complains about continually declining reimbursements, we've all seen the headlines. Google that title if you want to read a dreary blog. And in the midst of 4.1% GDP growth, one EMR asks the question, makes you wonder what's happening there, doesn't it? While the industry complains about declining reimbursements, our practices average January through June collections in 2018 are even with their rates in 2017. In fact, our practices' average 2018 collections haven't declined from their 2013 levels. How did we do it? You can read on our blog page how to correct undeserved collection problems. The blog explains what we've done over the years to deliver stable collections. It explains that your declining collections are not your fault. They are your outdated EMR's fault. They're your inadequate billing system's fault. When researching how to maximize compliance with MIPS, you'll come across EMRs who say they're the biggest, the best, who claim they're the most trusted, claim to be the doctor's favorite. But as you see, these vague statements have nothing to do with MIPS compliance. While other EMR software has spent millions of dollars over the years telling you they're the best, Systems for PT has invested millions of dollars innovating the best EMR billing solution in outpatient rehab. Systems for PT is the only EMR that's faster than paper documentation. The only EMR that's delivered 99.3% PQRS compliance. The only EMR that delivered 100% 10th visit G-code compliance. The only EMR whose average 2018 collections per visit haven't declined from 2017. We've got the most robust integrated MIPS workflow in the industry for less than what you're spending today for EMR and billing. MIPS is a competition. MIPS will separate outpatient rehab into winners and losers, and the losers will pay the winners. Keep these stats you see here in mind. You won't hear these specifics on these topics from any other EMR. With every healthcare reform requirement we've seen to date, Systems for PT has delivered higher compliance than anyone else in outpatient rehab. And so your practice isn't ready for MIPS. As MIPS pushes your practice toward higher levels of technology and compliance, we invite you to work with the EMR that's delivered the highest technology and compliance in outpatient rehab. Unlike every other EMR, we're not making vague, meaningless promises. We've discussed published results spanning millions of patient visits over the past 5 years. We've delivered the undisputed highest quality compliance with healthcare reform in outpatient rehab. Systems for PT looks ahead to MIPS with enthusiasm and confidence. We intend to achieve this same success with MIPS, and we hope you're part of our family as that happens.